Hello, you're watching Friday edition of News Mongolia. Today is May 20th. For our top stories, Usaid launches new energy governance program in Mongolia. Enrolling children with autism into ordinary kindergartens shows some positive outcomes. Launch of a stamp dedicated to the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and Japan. For other news, stay tuned. The U.S. government, through the United States Agency for International Development, launched a 5-year, $12 million Mongolia energy governance activity that will provide access to reliable electricity and facilitate sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Usaid Mission Director for the Philippines, Pacific Islands, and Mongolia, Ryan Washburn, formally launched the program during his inaugural visit to the country and was joined by U.S. Ambassador to Mongolia, Michael Klichevsky, Mongolia's Minister of Energy, Tevmbich Nasal, Chairman of the Energy Regulatory Commission, Tilehan Al-Malik, and other key stakeholders. Through the project, Usaid will work with key government and private sector partners to improve planning and operational performance, guide planning for new infrastructure, enable greater market competitiveness, and incentivize private investment through clear and transparent rules, and support increased adoption of modern, clean energy technologies. Mongolia currently depends on imports from neighboring countries to supply approximately 20% of its electricity. A more competitive and financially sustainable energy sector will increase Mongolia's economic competitiveness and create a more secure domestic energy supply. The project will help develop a more sustainable and self-reliant energy sector that will reduce fiscal pressures on the government. Usaid will also advance the use of clean alternatives to modernize the country's energy sector to help improve air quality. Currently, the capital city of Ulaanbaatar suffers from poor air quality due to reliance on coal-fired power generation, coupled with the burning of raw coal in the city's growing peri-urban GIR districts. The activity will continue to Usaid's climate change strategy, which was launched on April 22nd, Earth Day. ABT Associates is Usaid's implementing partner for this activity. For more than 30 years, Usaid has worked with Mongolia to advance democratic development, facilitate sustainable, inclusive economic growth, and solidify its path to greater independence and self-reliance. It is estimated that in the world, 1% of children have autism. Latest studies show that enrolling children with autism into ordinary kindergartens demonstrate some positive outcomes on their development. Doctors at the National Center for Maternal and Child Health diagnosed my son as likely to have autism when he was 3 years old. At that time, I could not accept the doctor's diagnosis. But 1 year later, when my son turned 4 years old, doctors officially diagnosed him with autism. My son doesn't have some difficult habits like screaming anytime like some other kids, but he still can't speak well enough when soon it's time to go to primary school in September.
People with autism can be physically fit and healthy like any other ordinary person, but in terms of conversation and social skills, they have some challenges compared to other people. Autism is a complex lifelong developmental disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skill, communication, relationships, and self-regulation. Parent of a child with autism says that kids like her son are trying to get an equal access to education by enrolling in the regular kindergarten. 2 years ago, Japan International Cooperation Agency implemented a project in the kindergarten. The kindergarten's preparatory class teacher said that the project is starting to show its noticeable results.
At first time, group kids were quite surprised, but now they learn to accept the difference. I think this is the most important thing. In the past, children with autism could not look people straight into the eye or sit at a table with other children. But now they learn to communicate with others, doing simple tasks, such as going and fixing her or his bed by himself and falling asleep. This is a big change, and it means that the child is learning how to socialize. Children with autism are generally diagnosed with F84 code, but all of them have different behaviors depending on their personality. Therefore, our kindergarten teachers work with the child's parents to develop individual study plans for the child. depending on child's behavior. In addition, the JICA project team is implementing a portage program in kindergarten training. In general, children with autism differ from other children in their level of intellectual development, so in Japan, individual programs are developed for that child. However, if necessary, immediate action is taken. At other times, they follow the same program as ordinary children.
Most importantly, kindergarten teachers know that parents lose time because they refuse to recognize that their children have autism. This is because children with autism do not speak well enough or become overly aggressive. However, if parents start accepting autism, it will help child's normal growth and development.
At the beginning, society did not accept autism. People usually said, "What a weird kid," or "that child has bad manners." One of the weaknesses of my son is that he hits people. This makes it difficult for me to go out with my son. That's why we want other adults to understand and accept the differences of children with autism. If you come across a child with a slightly different behavior than a normal child, don't be surprised and try to understand.
It is estimated that in the world 1% of children have autism. According to studies, some 20,000 people in Mongolia live with autism. Experts note that children with autism have symptoms such as poor communication skills, speaking difficulties, and low emotional intelligence.
The launching ceremony of the stamp dedicated to the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and Japan was held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Thursday. The opening ceremony was attended by Ahbayr, State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hiroyuki Kobayashi, Ambassador of Japan to Mongolia, and Ahwatar, CEO of Mongol Post JSC.
For the occasion of the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations, we have planned several activities. As you know, we started the activities with the press conference. Within the frame of the celebration, the Foreign Minister of Japan, Yoshimasa Hayashi, paid a visit to Mongolia. During the bilateral meetings, two sides assessed the last 50 years of cooperation between our two countries and discussed future cooperation in the upcoming 50 years. Within the frame of anniversary, this year was announced as the Year of Youth Exchange. This is a meaningful event for celebration of 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between our two countries. We remember celebratory post stamps were issued by Mongol Post for the 35th and 45th year anniversary. I'm really grateful that this good old tradition is being continued. Every country has its particular poem and literature culture. Therefore, we have created post stamps inspired by the Japanese poem haiku. Two poems dedicated for the vast steppe of Mongolia and sakura flower of Japan were written, and the poems were included in the post stamp design.
Mongolia and Japan have a long tradition of cooperation in the cultural sector. The theme of this commemorative souvenir sheet is the writing culture of the two countries. Notably, traditional Japanese haiku poems are interpreted into Mongolian script. Pictures depict the vast steppes of Mongolia, bird cherry tree flowers, and beautiful Japanese sakura flowers. There were stamps dedicated to the 18th Summer Olympics in Tokyo, printed in 1964. The stamp dedicated to the Expo 1970, 1991, 2001, and Expo 2011, the 11th Winter Olympics in Sapporo, held in 1972. Stamp for the Mongolian-Japanese friendship printed in 1994 and 2000, and the stamps dedicated for the 30th, 35th, and 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations. Ahwatar, CEO of Mongol Post JSC, presented commemorative stamps to the distinguished guests who attended the ceremony. It was mentioned that the senior diplomat Batsaham provided professional advice and collaboration in creating this souvenir sheet. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Most of the local museum buildings in the provinces are quite old, and some provinces have no museum buildings at all. For example, Hufsut province has no dedicated building for its museum, and the museum is operating as part of the central library.
For example, the Hufsut Province Museum was established in 1949, but it doesn't meet operational standards. The local museum is located within the library building. Recently, with the investment of a local development fund, 2 halls of the museum have been installed with standard lightings. Since the beginning of the year, the museum has been visited by more than 300 people.
We are relying on the funds of the Asian Development Bank for sustainable tourism program. We hope that by 2024 a new museum will be built and put into operation.
Our home province museum was established in 1983. It has a new building compared to many other local museums, and it continues to enrich its exhibits with artifacts from recent explorations. There are about 50 exhibits in our museum. These halls display artifacts that were discovered since 2014 as a result of exploration works. The exhibits are being restored with the local financial support. In addition, the museum has introduced a VR technology that allows you to feel as if you are in an artificial environment. This allows you to view 17 types of historical contents and artifacts.
Here comes the weather forecast for the world's major cities. This is it for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next time with more news updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.